here in Congress. You have more than one. And I'll just say, and I don't mean to be gender specific, but the fact that Eliana and I are both women, both moms, we've seen this up close and personal. I have. And we're not going to rest until this becomes law. Let's put it that way. So, we got our marching orders. Thank you very much.
I'm almost moved to be speechless. That was an incredible just moment that we all experienced, and I am so thrilled. I liked her before she became our champion of this bill, and now I want to move to her district. That was amazing. So I'm just thrilled that she had time to spend with us. And Seth, I appreciate you being so kind and generous enough to yield to the Congresswoman. You didn't have much of a choice, but so. The right thing to do. Great. So as you were saying.
So where was I? Truth in advertising matters, because in 2014, like never before, pictures are claims, and they are worth at least 1,000 words. And if these photoshopped ads told the same bold-faced lies in words that they do in images, regulatory and/or legal action would have been taken long ago. Indeed, the ad industry's own National Ad Division has said, quote, "An advertiser is responsible for all reasonable interpretations of its claims, not simply the messages it intended to convey," end quote. But advertisers haven't been responsible. Thousands of U.S. advocates, psychiatrists, psychologists, doctors, researchers, educators, the governments of England, France, Italy, Australia, Israel, and American health organizations, including the Centers for Disease Control and the American Medical Association, have found correlation and causation between these false and unrealistic misrepresentations and consumer harm and damage. In 2011, the American Medical Association, concerned with the link between advertising body image and child and adolescent health in particular, issued a new policy statement saying, quote, "We must stop exposing impressionable children and teenagers to ads portraying models with body types only attainable with the help of photo editing software." The AMA continued by asking the ad industry to develop guidelines that would discourage the altering of photographs in a manner that could promote unrealistic expectations of appropriate body image. And in the 3 years since, the ad industry hasn't acted on the AMA's concerns, nor, by the way, did they accept our invitations to this briefing. And so nothing's changed, except that tens of millions more of us have been exposed and affected. Truth in advertising matters, because not only are these ads deceptive, they can be directly linked to an array of health consequences, including eating disorders. And it matters because I don't want my children to become one more number among a portfolio of morbid statistics like some the Congresswoman just went through, and which in the interest of time I will avoid. But please know that 3 of the most common mental health problems among girls, eating disorders, depression, and low self-esteem, can each be linked to the depiction of girls and women in the media. And these consequences don't discriminate based on gender. 16% of high school boys and 30% of high school girls have disordered eating. They're children. And eating disorders, which are currently affecting 10 million girls in this country right now, have, as this room knows better than any room, the highest mortality rate of all mental illnesses. And the consequences aren't limited to children, nor, however, are the consequences limited to health. The consequences and damages are also economic. Before we even quantify the direct and indirect healthcare costs to you and the districts around the country related to treatments of depression, anxiety, and eating disorders, consider that the average U.S. woman will spend $15,000 over the course of her lifetime on cosmetics, at least in some, and to some degree, chasing a fabricated and make-believe ideal. What we're talking about with 157 million women in the United States is 2.3 trillion with a T dollars that will be spent over the next 60 to 70 years in one category, based at least in part on advertising that manipulates, distorts, and deceives. Truth in advertising matters because advertising can change how we think, feel, and act. Its sole purpose is to create demand and get us to buy. And if ads like this didn't do that, if they weren't proven to influence consumer purchase, does anyone think advertisers would keep doing this? But beyond influencing us, advertising also influences our children, whether they're its intended target or simply, as with secondhand smoke, innocent bystanders unable to avoid these images and their meanings implied and actual. Our children trust and take the pictures in these ads at face value, and they don't have the skills to interpret or process the altered images and expectations that they see. But based on the data, I'm not sure that many of us do. And if the images used to sell are not real, they are fake and false. And if false and intended to help sell, they are deceptive. And if they are deceptive, damaging, and influence purchase decisions, it's time we all come together to do something to change advertising status quo. And unless we do something now, there's a little girl who won't be born for a year, maybe 2 years. But she'll grow up aspiring to look like something that she never can, because it's not real and it doesn't exist. But she won't process that. And when she's 10, despite being healthy, she'll think she's overweight. And when she's 13, despite being beautiful, she'll be certain that she's ugly. Her hesitance at wearing a bathing suit to the beach will morph into self-hate, self-harm, and disordered eating. And when she's 16, this will develop into anorexia or bulimia. And then despite the love that she is surrounded by, she's going to be unable to see past the distorted images in her mind to the beautiful, vibrant person her family and friends know her to be. And when she's 19, with tubes in her body because she refused to eat, she'll die of cardiac arrest as her mom holds one hand and her dad the other. And this may be dramatic, but sadly, it is far more real than are these ads. And truth in advertising matters because we can no longer sit by and allow this to happen, and we can't allow these deceptive commercial practices to continue unabated as if they were harmless and innocent and ethical, because they aren't, which is why you here matter. You matter because the preponderance of evidence linking this type of advertising to an array of public health issues can be seen with absolute clarity, and yet nothing's changed. We assume no evil intent by advertisers nor their agencies, but it's past time for them to be accountable for the side effects of how they sell and not just what they sell. And despite its moral and ethical imperative, truth in advertising is not a silver bullet, and it's not a cure for all that ails us. But doing nothing would be an injustice, and it would miss an opportunity to do something to stop what we know is deceptive and damaging. And if we here succeed in making only a small difference, tens of millions of lives will be positively impacted, as will millions more, far less positively, if we don't, and advertising status quo endures. In supporting truth in advertising, you'll know you stood up for what's right and reasonable. You'll know you stood up for children, girls, and women, and for all of us, and that together we said enough is enough, the unencumbered right of advertisers to distort, exaggerate, and misrepresent the images of the people in their ads has come at far too high a cost for far too long. And so on behalf of my 7-year-old son, Otis, and my 8-year-old daughter, Ella Rose Gordon, thank you. Thank you for taking the time to attend this briefing. To the staffers, thank you for taking the Truth in Advertising Act back to your bosses. As Victor Hugo wrote, no army can stop an idea whose time has come. And this one has.